All praises are due to the Most High. That now this information, this very information that we're bringing out, has gone mainstream. And what I mean by mainstream is that some mainstream scholars, biblical scholars, are now echoing what we have been saying for the longest about this scripture in Matthew 2:13. In fact, back in 2001, I believe it was, there was a program on the Discovery Channel called The Complete Jesus. Now, in this program, there was a scholar interviewed. This scholar went by the name, well, his name is Dr. Mark Goodacre. Now, Dr. Mark Goodacre stated in this program, almost for word, what I just told you about Yeshua hiding in Egypt because he was a black Hebrew and he looked like the black Egyptian. So he pretty much has said, echoed the same thing I've said. Now, I have a soundbite from that show. And as you can see on your screen, that's a picture of Dr. Mark Goodacre. The program was called The Complete Jesus. I have a soundbite from that show, and I'm going to play it right now. And I want you to hear, I want you to listen and see what this scholar is saying. He's saying the same thing that we Hebrews have been saying for the longest. And here's that soundbite.
Goodacre believes that the traditional depictions of Jesus' skin color may also need revising. Firstly, most historians would assume that in Jesus' part of the world, people would be darker skinned. In addition, Goodacre has now found supporting evidence in the Gospels themselves. Matthew writes that when Herod ordered the massacre of children under the age of 2, Mary and Joseph escaped with Jesus to Egypt.
Now, it's very unlikely that Jesus would have been able to be hidden in Egypt if he had a very different colour skin from the people that were in Egypt.
Wow, wow, wow. Now, it's very unlikely that Jesus would have been able to be hidden in Egypt if he had a very different color of skin from the people in Egypt. Did you hear that? That's what he just said. Let me read that again. Let me quote him again. He said, now it's very unlikely that Jesus or Yahushua would have been able to be hidden in Egypt if he had a very different color skin of the people, from the people in Egypt. Now, he used Jesus. That was the name of this program, The Complete Jesus. But as I told you, the reason why we don't use Jesus in this presentation, but that I'm going to leave that Jesus there because that was his quote. And I don't want to misquote him. I want to quote him word for word. Once again, he said, now it's very unlikely that Jesus would have been able to be hidden in Egypt if he had a very different color of skin from the people in Egypt. So that's what I just told you, and that's the understanding, that he had to look like the Egyptians in order to be hidden. Remember, he was fleeing into Egypt because Herod was seeking to destroy him, so he was seeking refuge in the land of Egypt. Right here, the picture of the Christian Christ. How in the world could, if Yahushua looked like the picture of the Christian Christ that you should see on your screen right now, if he looked like that, how could he hide in Egypt among these black Egyptians that you also have been seeing on your screen and that you see now? It wouldn't match up, right? He would have been found easily. Easily. These are the Egyptians, brothers and sisters. And the Hebrews look just like them. Now look at this. Look at these pictures of these Egyptians right here. Beautiful black brothers and sisters, right? So how do we go from this truth right here to this? How do we get to here? White Egyptians in this manner during the biblical time. How do we get here? Well, as we've been saying throughout, deception. Deception is how we have the truth covered up with this lie. The truth has been covered up with this lie. And so let's look at another aspect. Because I'm trying to, we're trying to, in this physical appearance, we're trying to get this whole thing covered. So you won't have too many questions. But if you do have questions, the contact information will be at the end of this DVD, and you can contact me through that way if you have any questions. Let's go to Israelite hairstyles. Just how did our people wear their hair? Because we see that they were a black people. We see that they were black. So how did they wear their hair? We're going to see locks, braids, afros, and natural woolly hair. Natural woolly. In the book of Numbers, chapter 6, verse 5, it tells us of the Nazarite. The Nazarite were special Israelites, men and women, that have taken a special vow unto the Most High Yah. Within this vow, the Nazarite vowed, that he would not drink anything, no wine, no any grape product. and he would not cut his hair. Not only his hair, but he would not bring a razor upon his head, which means if a man was to take this vow, that he was not to bring a razor upon his head, or, you know, cut his hair or cut his beard. Okay? So it says that in Numbers 6:5, says, all the days of the vow of his separation, there shall no razor come upon his head until the days be fulfilled, in the which he separated himself unto Yah. He shall be set apart, or holy, and shall let the locks of the hair of his head grow. Oh, wow. So this Israelite cannot cut his hair. He must let his locks grow. That's what Scripture says. Locks of the hair of his head grow. So he could not cut his hair. All right, so what is that telling us? Let's go to one of the stories of one of the most famous Nazarites, and that's the brother Samson. You all know about Samson, a strong man. He killed 1,000 Philistines with the jawbone of an ass, jawbone of a donkey. He killed 1,000 Philistines, and he was just an overall strong man. Scripture tells us that Samson had locks. And let's read about these locks that Samson had, because remember, Samson was one of these Nazarites that took this vow, and from his womb he was a Nazarite. And Samson was never to cut his hair. He was never to bring a razor upon his head, upon his face. So let's read about Samson. Judges 16:13. And Delilah said unto Samson, until now you have mocked me and spoken lies to me. Reveal to me how you might be bound. And he said to her, if you weave, cut the 7 locks of my head. If you weave, or if you cut the 7 locks of my head. Interesting. 7 locks. 7 locks. Now, lock here just means the intertwining of the hair. So what you know of dreadlocks, that's what it's talking about. And they're not dreadlocks, they're just locks, because it is the Gentile, I believe, that gave them the name dreadlock, because they say that they look so dreadful. But this is natural. Our people wore locks in the ancient times and even today. So let's look at this. Samson, seven locks in his head. How did that happen? Did Samson go down to the nearest Korean shop and, you know, and get his hair locked up, just 7 locks in his head? No, brother Samson never cut his hair. And Samson left his hair unkept, and his hair grew into locks. What is that telling us? That's telling us that brother Samson had woolly texture hair. Woolly hair is exclusive to black-skinned people. Black-skinned people. And Samson had this layer, this texture of hair, in order for him to have just 7 locks. Because if we keep our hair unkept, what I'm saying is, if we lay down on our hair, wake up on it, and it's in its natural state. I'm not talking about if you have, you know, put perms or chemicals in your head. I'm saying if you have your hair in the natural state, that natural woolly state, black people, so-called black people, Hebrews, and you go to bed on it. You know, you lay down on it, you wake up on it, lay on it, and you don't comb it or do any of that. You just let it grow, and, you know, it's going to lock together automatically. And when it locks together automatically, it's going to grow into at least about 7 locks. They're going to be 7 big locks. And if you don't cut it for a certain amount of years, let's say if you don't cut it for 14, 15 years, it's going to grow down your back. Just like you see the Jamaican brothers do today. You see these brothers on the screen? Look at those big locks he had. Those are natural locks. And for Samson to only have 7, let us know that his hair locked together naturally, and it grew and then little locks joined onto other little locks here, and they, you know, formed big locks. So he only had 7 locks. 7 locks. Because he had woolly hair. Woolly hair, because woolly hair is natural, is exclusive to us black people. And Samson was a Hebrew Israelite, and you have been shown, you see, the Hebrew Israelites were a black people. Look at these Jamaican brothers on the screen right there. You see how they have the natural locks? But look at this right here. This is a Gentile, a white man, taken from a movie called, this picture right here is taken from a movie called Samson. And he is portraying Samson. Samson only has 7 locks in his head. Where is this man's 7